Born on May 21st, 1960, and passed away on November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was an American serial killer and sex offender. He was known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster between 1978 and 1991. He killed and dismembered 17 males. It is important to note that many of his later murders involved disturbing acts such as necrophilia, cannibalism, and preserving body parts, often the skeleton, for a long time. Hello everyone, and welcome to Noches de Terror to Study English. My name is Cesar, and I'm a university English teacher in Mexico. As a language learner myself, siempre me ha gustado aprender con historias y películas de terror. Así que me hice la pregunta, ¿por qué no un podcast para aprender inglés con temáticas de terror? Y así nació esta idea. Espero les guste and you too can enjoy these stories while learning English. In our first episode, we will talk about the life of Jeffrey Dahmer. During his time in school, Jeffrey gained a reputation as an outsider, alguien que sentía que no pertenecía, and who enjoyed playing foolish pranks and drinking heavily. Some of his pranks involved shouting at odd moments, imitating the sounds of sheep, and pretending to have epileptic seizures. El 4 de junio de 1978, Jeffrey terminó high school y se graduó. Para este punto, él ya vivía por su cuenta. Sus padres estaban pasando por un divorcio muy feo, así que los dos se mudaron de la casa dejando a Jeffrey solo. Since Jeffrey was legally considered an adult at 18, the law did not permit anyone to have custody of him. As a result, nobody took custody of him. This led to continued instability and lack of emotional support. Even during his school years, Dahmer displayed a fascination with death. Friends mentioned that he enjoyed collecting roadkill, animales muertos que se encontraban a un lado de la carretera, and bringing it to a shed behind his house to remove the skin from the bodies. He also had a small cemetery for animals. There were rumors that he killed dogs and cats from the neighborhood and even displayed a dog's head on a stake. On June 18th of the same year, Dahmer gave a ride to a 19-year-old named Stephen Mark Hicks, who was hitchhiking, haciendo autostop. Fueron a la casa de Dahmer para tomar algunas cervezas, pero cuando Hicks quería irse, Dahmer lo golpeó en la cabeza con una barra de pesas y después lo estranguló con esta. Over the following weeks, he systematically removed the flesh from the bones, crushed the bones, and got rid of the remaining fragments in the backyard. By December 29th, Jeffrey joined the army. Although he aspired to be a military police, he didn't succeed and instead received training as a medic. He was then assigned to Baumholder, Germany. This assignment was far from desirable, and it took place only a few years after the Vietnam War, which had left the military with low morale, discipline issues, and widespread drug and alcohol abuse. En el ejército, Dahmer ya no era visto como una persona divertida. Sin embargo, ganó algo de atención no solo por ser un alcohólico, sino también por ser un ebrio violento. In September of 1986, Dahmer frequently visited gay bars and bathhouses. Las casas de baño solían ser lugares en donde los hombres gays y o bisexuales iban a tener relaciones. However, he was banned from one bathhouse because there was allegations that he drugged people on separate occasions in private booths. Although no charges were filed, one of the victims had to be hospitalized for about a week. Durante ese mismo mes, Dahmer mató a Stephen W. Tuomny, quien tenía 24 años de edad. Dahmer declaró que cuando se despertó en la habitación del hotel y vio a la víctima, no tenía ningún recuerdo de lo que había ocurrido. He then purchased a large suitcase, brought the body to his grandmother's house, and disposed of it in a similar manner to what he did with Stephen Hicks' body. In the following year, 1989, two significant events occurred involving Dahmer. First, he was convicted of second-degree sexual assault and enticing a child for immoral purposes. On May 23rd, he received sentences of 5 years and 3 years to be served concurrently. However, he only served 10 months and began 5 years of probation. 5 años de libertad condicional. La siguiente víctima de Dahmer fue Anthony Sears, de 24 años de edad. Dahmer lo conoció en un club y lo llevó a la casa de su abuela. Después de tener relaciones sexuales, Dahmer drogó y asesinó a Sears. In 1990, Dahmer committed 4 more murders. The first victim was Ricky Biggs, who was 33 years old. Ricky was killed on May 29th. Dahmer met him at a club and offered him money to pose for nude pictures. He drugged and strangled Ricky and then engaged in sexual activity with the body. In June, Edward W. Smith, who was 28 years old, was killed. Dahmer met him at a bar and used the exact same method he used with Ricky. Dahmer also took pictures while dismembering Edward's body. Mientras lo desmembraba, Dahmer tomaba fotografías. The next murder occurred on September 2nd. Ernest Miller, who was 24 years old, was last seen alive on this day. Dahmer met him in front of a bookstore and offered him money to go home with him. After engaging in sexual activity, Dahmer drugged Ernest, cut his throat, and took pictures of the body. He then dismembered the body, placing the biceps in the freezer. Additionally, he bleached the skeleton and painted the skull. Durante este mes, el 24, Dahmer cometió otro asesinato. La víctima fue David C. Thomas. Aunque Dahmer usó el mismo método para traer a David a su apartamento, no tuvieron relaciones sexuales. Sin embargo, Dahmer sí tomó fotografías del proceso de desmembramiento. The following year, 1991, Curtis Trotter, who was 18 years old, was last seen alive on March 7th. Dahmer picked him up at a bus stop and offered him money to come home with him. After drugging Trotter and engaging in sexual activity, Dahmer strangled him. Pictures were taken of the dismembered body. This is at least the third sequence of events Dahmer experienced with his method. Previously, it had been sex, drugging, and then murder. At least once he tried drugs, murder, and then sex. This time it involved drugs, sex, and murder. Exactamente un mes después, Dahmer usó el mismo método otra vez para Errol Lindsey, quien tenía 19 años de edad. In May, Dahmer met 14-year-old Conrad Sintason in front of a mall and offered him money to pose for nude pictures. After taking the pictures, Dahmer drugged Conrad and went out for beer. The boy managed to escape naked into the street. Neighbors called the police, but Dahmer convinced them that he and the boy were lovers who had just had a little quarrel. The police, seemingly unconcerned that Sintason was still too drugged to confirm or deny the story, returned him to Dahmer. As soon as the police left, Dahmer strangled him. He then engaged in sexual activity with his body, took pictures, and dismembered him. Unos días después, aún en mayo, Tony Hughes, quien tenía 31 años de edad y había conocido a Dahmer por un poco más de 2 años, se convirtió en la siguiente víctima. Dahmer le ofreció $50 para ir a su departamento y posar desnudo para una sesión de fotos. Hughes fue drogado y asesinado sin ningún tipo de actividad sexual. On June 30th, during Pride Day, Matt Turner, age 20, was last seen alive. He met Jeffrey in Chicago at the bus station after a gay pride parade. Dahmer offered him money to pose nude, drugged him, and strangled him with a strap. After dismembering the body, Dahmer put the head in the freezer and the rest in a barrel of acid he had obtained. Barely a week later, on July 6th, Jeremiah Weinberger, age 23, was last seen alive. They met in Chicago at a gay bar where Dahmer offered him money to come back to Milwaukee. This murder is different because the victim was not murdered until the day after he came home with Dahmer. When Weinberger indicated that he wanted to leave, Dahmer drugged him, strangled him, and dismembered him, taking pictures of the process. Like the previous victim, his head went into the freezer and his body was placed in the acid. 9 days later, on July 15th, Dahmer was fired from his job at the Ambrosia Chocolate Corporation, and on that day he claimed his next victim, Oliver Lacey, who who was 23 years old, was last seen alive. He met Dahmer on the street and went back to his apartment for body rubs. Lacey was then drugged and strangled. Dahmer had sexual intercourse with the body before dismembering it. He placed the head in the fridge and the heart in the freezer, with intentions to eat it. Al siguiente día, Joseph Breithoff, de 25 años de edad, fue visto por última vez. Se conocieron en una parada de autobús donde Dahmer lo atrajo usando su método usual. Después, Dahmer puso la cabeza de Joseph en el congelador y su cuerpo en un barril de ácido. On July 22nd, Dahmer encountered Tracy Edwards. Tracy was supposed to be Dahmer's next victim. However, Tracy managed to escape from Dahmer's handcuffs. With one hand still handcuffed, he flagged down a police car. He led the police officers back to Dahmer's apartment. Inside, they discovered photographs of dismembered victims and body parts in the refrigerator and freezer. A crew in biohazard protection suits collecting evidence from Dahmer's apartment spread worldwide. The suits were needed due to the smell of decay in the apartment and the presence of acid in the barrels. Caught red-handed, con las manos en la masa o atrapado en el acto, with overwhelming physical evidence against him, it is not surprising that Jeffrey confessed. His descriptions of murdering 12.5 young men, delivered in a dry and emotionless manner, belied the true brutality and sadism that was revealed through Tracy Edwards' testimony. Edwards estaba drogado, pero permaneció consciente, dando la posibilidad a que los sedativos que Dahmer administraba a sus víctimas fueron intencionalmente suministradas para mantenerlos conscientes de su horrible destino. By that point, Dahmer had acquired enough experience to determine the dosage needed to render a person unconscious. It is likely that Dahmer enjoyed taunting his victims about their impending doom and derived pleasure from killing them slowly, more than he admitted later. Dahmer also claimed that he needed to drink heavily to confront the act of killing, but we know that he had been a severe alcoholic for much of his life. Making excuses for his drinking behavior was a regular occurrence for him and cannot be considered sincere. Los juicios por los asesinatos de Dahmer tomaron lugar en 1992, durante los cuales él se declaró culpable por motivos de locura en 15 de los 17 homicidios. Sin embargo, el jurado declaró que Dahmer estaba cuerdo en cada caso. Consequently, he received 15 consecutive life sentences. During the sentencing, Dahmer read a prepared statement expressing remorse for the pain he had caused. Regarding these events, Dahmer's words were as follows: "I knew I was sick, or evil, or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I know now how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends. I now know I will be in prison the rest of my life. I know that I will have to turn to God to help me get through each day. I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a holocaust. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins." El 28 de noviembre de 1994, Dahmer fue asesinado por Christopher Scarver por todos los daños que éste había cometido hacia la comunidad afroamericana, ya que casi todas las víctimas eran hombres de color. Dahmer's body was discovered covered in blood and unconscious. He died on his way to the hospital due to skull fractures and brain trauma. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know in the comments. Like it and share it with more people so they can learn and enjoy with historias de terror to learn English. I'm Cesar, till the next episode. See you.